Please welcome to the stage Lesley Standridge and Michael Stocker.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for sticking around as we wrap up day 2 here at the event, and we hope that we can provide a little bit of energy as we wrap up the show, and we're super lucky here to have an incredible guest that's going to be introduced in just a moment. I'm Michael. I'm the co-founder and CEO at Way, and we're going to spend some time today talking about delivering luxury from the first digital touch. I think where we're coming from here is we spend so much time talking about luxury in the context of the physical world, incredible architecture, working to get your next Michelin star, the most incredible fine art, linens, right? So often the digital element of that is sometimes forgotten or put to the side, right? And as we look at sort of where consumer behavior goes and sort of this major transfer of wealth that's going to take place over the next decade into a younger generation of consumers who are really prioritizing digital when it comes to how they shop. This means sort of more than ever that this emphasis on creating a luxury digital experience we believe is really important. So we're really lucky here to have Lesley, and maybe Lesley, if we want to start off, and love to have you introduce yourself to the group.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lesley Standridge. I'm the Vice President of Global Digital Product at Hyatt Hotels. I'm very excited to be here, so thanks for having me. It's
awesome.
An exciting topic.
Cool. So with that in mind, Lesley, we're going to chat a little bit about luxury digital experiences, what exactly that means. So I want to start with just a pretty simple and big picture question. Tell us how, for you all at Hyatt, at your global scale, right? How does digital make or break the guest experience?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that can happen in that space, as we all know. I think there's some interesting kind of macro level trends, though, that's very important to keep in mind. One is it's critical to keep customers in your digital ecosystem. They will go elsewhere if they can't find the information or level of service that they expect. They will go to other sites and other resources. And as we think about what that creates in terms of the customer experience, it creates a lot of friction. It's a lot of distrust. It can take time. It's cumbersome. It's not reliable. And you risk them going to a competitor. But a big way to try to overcome that is to provide the right level of service and accessibility, meaning make it easy, make it exciting and enjoyable to do the things that they need to do within our digital ecosystem. We also want to meet the needs of customers and their expectations. If they know that we know who they are and what their needs are, and if we can digitally showcase that and service those needs, they'll come back time and time again. So there's a direct connection to loyalty. But the main point there is if you can keep them in your ecosystem and make sure that you're really rounding out that end-to-end experience, it's incredibly important to keep investing in digital.
And I think, it's when you talk about luxury sort of in the physical world, right, it's all about anticipating the needs of the guest, being there and sort of solving their problems before they even ask, right? And sort of kind of being able to replicate that in a digital environment, I think is what you all have done so well at Hyatt.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think those are great points, and also kind of taking the lift off their shoulders, right? Mm-hmm. Doing things for them in the moment and making sure that you can release a lot of those frictions as much as possible is something we're always very hyper-focused on.
Okay, so let's get into some of the details here, and we're going to go to our first slide, I believe. Maybe just tell us, what does this actually look like, right? When we think about staying in your environment, brand, navigation. When we think about luxury in a digital world, maybe give us some examples. We've got a beautiful, video here going of the Andaz brand, which is such a special, concept that Hyatt's built. Maybe you can tell us, what specifically this looks like when we think about luxury.
Yeah, I think this site is a great showcase of a lot of those examples. As we think about investing in high quality brand visuals, property information, it sounds very basic, and in theory it is, but it's amazing how much the space is still neglected. Mm-hmm. So when we think about high quality images, visuals, multimedia, very detailed property information, being in the moment, looking at this navigation, it's very clear to understand that the customer can have the confidence, be educated on this information so that they know that when they arrive on property, they will receive a luxury experience. They can just kind of be immersed in some of these pages. And it starts at these property pages. It's something that we heavily believe in as well. And we see the traffic and we see the customers engage in that way as well.
Right.
So those investments are critical.
Yeah, and I think, when we talk about kind of delivering luxury from the first touch, right, this really means like the very first digital touch point, right? And we're not talking about, I think the word digital can mean a lot of things, of course, just like the word, experience, right? Digital, in this context, I don't think we're talking about, Wi-Fi and television, right? Like we're talking about actual digital channels and sort of distribution to guests, right? Whether that's through web, whether that's through mobile. And so maybe you can talk for just a minute or two, like what the first touch point looks like that the guest is sort of exposed to, right? And then from there, I think it would be great to sort of bring that all the way through to the point of, the sort of, we talked about navigation here, and I was behind on my slide here, but the process of sort of discovering content, right? This staying in the environment of the brand. But what is that actual very first digital touch point that you talk about?
Yeah, there are a lot of different entry points, but one of the most critical are those property pages, are some of those home pages, are some of the other digital assets that the customer is exposed to. So if you think about that entire ecosystem for a property, that's what we try to really wrap our arms around. And to your point about ease of navigation and discoverability, this is a great example it's one example, but for a consumer who might want to understand what is available on property, what are some of those experiences, how do they understand that luxury is going to be there from end to end. So here is an example. There are quite a few experiences that are available in our Andaz property in Mexico City. So we're encompassing this through visuals, through the information, through that navigation to carry them through, have ease of booking, ease of findability of that information, of the policies, and to where they can also really, really self-service so that whenever they arrive, they're ready to go. So we try to stay ahead of that.
And how about as we kind of navigate through like the journey and so sort of the first touch point, right, being when the guest first arrives on the Andaz website, right? And then we talk about navigation, we talk about high quality imagery, brand consistency. As we go through the digital journey and sort of creating this holistic luxury journey for the guest, right? What do some of the last touches look like, right? We've talked about kind of navigation, easily finding, the bookable links, right? Whether it's room inventory, ancillary inventory. What does that journey look like as you proceed throughout the process? The guest is staying with you, they're booking their experiences. What do kind of those sort of secondary and final touch points look like from a digital standpoint?
Yeah, the couple of big things to keep in mind is brand continuity and property integrity. So the more that we can do that, even up until the last digital touch point, that is what will carry that through and really showcase that in the consumer's mind, what that experience will be. So as we think about from the first touch to the last touch, we want to try to keep that as seamless and high quality as possible, but that continuity, the integrity behind that, is something that we really try to kind of almost put a fine-tooth comb on, so that we want to make sure that as the customers experience it, as they end up going on property and engaging with colleagues on property, all of that is continuous and not surprising, right? It's something that they're going to expect. It's something that they want in terms of the level of service. So all the way through to the last digital touch point and beyond is something we're very much on top of. And it's not always linear, right? That's something to keep in mind as well. Things come back. Sometimes the experience pivots. Sometimes there's other touch points that might not be as obvious that we need to kind of read the data and understand the customer as well from a different vantage point. So it's a really interesting matrix, as you start to kind of think about that.
One of the things I think might be interesting, Hyatt, of course, sort of global, publicly traded, large-scale hospitality business that's done this successfully, right? Yeah. So there's, and we'll go off script here for a minute. There's a lot of complexity that goes into doing that for a company with over 1,000 hotels, right? And so my hope is that if Hyatt's done it successfully, your teams have done it successfully. In theory, anybody from an independent hotel to the biggest brands in the world should be able to execute on this, right? Yep. Maybe you can talk for a couple of minutes about if I'm sort of a smaller scale operator or an independent luxury hotel, what are some like easy wins that could be interesting? Just think about at a high level, even if you don't have the resources, let's say, of a global digital team and developers and designers and whatnot.
Yeah, I think one of the big things is kind of back to the original point is trying to, at whatever resources they have at their disposal, is to make sure that it does is integrated, is encompassed in all of the digital products. So making sure that the customer's not having to go 5 different places, right? Or getting disparate information in terms of a level of information or policies that they need to go find. So anytime they can kind of come back into the core digital space, that is something that we always lean into and try to advise our properties on. At the same time, we do a lot of intake on feedback and try to learn the market and try to understand regions and customer segments and what those needs are so that we can continue to build those centralized products and scale accordingly. And then also give the properties access as well to be able to kind of be in the driver's seat.
And so I think one of the things you mentioned there a little bit and in one of your previous responses is sort of anticipating needs and kind of this degree of personalization. I know Hyatt's done a lot with your personalization engine, and maybe we can just spend a minute or two talking about how personalization from a web standpoint, from a content standpoint, is a key part of your strategy in driving loyalty.
It is. We actually just launched a very exciting personalization product this past year. We have some touch points across all of our spaces, across devices, and experiences is actually one that we started to incorporate and saw some great revenue generating kind of opportunities out of it. It also includes offers, it includes awareness, but we have started to build data science models, and we continue to learn through those models, right? And we can continue to evolve those so that we can make sure that in the moment, at the right time, in the right space, with the right message, we're targeting customers with what they need, when they need it, and we are continuing to learn that through those models as well and through these experiences. So we are, I would say, a bit in our infancy on that curve and on that journey, but it's been really exciting learnings, fast learnings. We are expanding very quickly because of the benefits that we are seeing out of it, and the customers are responding in a really positive way.
Maybe you can just take us for, we have a few minutes left here. It'd be interesting to just understand, if I'm a loyalty member at Hyatt, right, arriving on the Hyatt website, and I'm checking out, the Thompson in Dallas or whatever we have up on the screen here, what does that personalization engine, like what does that journey look like? What am I seeing on the screen as I sort of start browsing the website, as I book my room, as I book my experiences? What are the kind of dynamic touch points, let's say, throughout that process?
Yeah, there are a few. So it depends on the scenario, but I'll give an example. So if we know who you are, we may present certain experiences or offers that pertain to you. If you're anonymous, we may have other signals in our pipeline that will generate additional content and surface that as well. After you book, we obviously know more information, so that we're able to make sure that we're surfacing some content. Experience is a large one, to be honest, especially right now with the way that the customers want to get back out there and invest their money in different ways and get those experiences under their belt. That is a lot of what we're focusing on the tail end of that journey, especially post-purchase. So the properties actually generate a lot of this content. We have a QA process, we invest in that in a very heavy way. But the way that we're showcasing it, the way that we are understanding when and where to show it is really the most important piece there. So after you convert it, we show quite a bit of content to the customer, and then we see them respond.
So post room booking, I'm getting some type of a confirmation email with personalized messaging or content.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And I guess kind of then tying this back to hotels that, let's say, don't have the resources at the scale of Hyatt or smaller properties or smaller organizations, how can that level of personalization still sort of transcend, let's say, into a smaller operation? Are there simple tools or tactics that Hyatt's adopted or your teams have adopted to that maybe can work at a smaller scale without sort of the same level of investment?
Right, CRM tools, there are properties that have local CRM tools. We have some at the disposal for the properties as well. So there are ways to make sure that you could track to understanding who those customers are, to make sure that you're servicing them accordingly on property, offering them things that they need. Usually CRM products or other mechanisms within their systems on property to make sure that they can kind of track to those things. It is a little bit more manual. Again, we do have some corporate products that are available, but again, we try to provide some guidance on that as well.
Awesome. So we've got about a minute left here. I'd love to just, we're going to finish with maybe 2 or 3 quick things, takeaways for the audience. We've covered some pretty big picture topics, right? Luxury and digital is sort of an endless, let's say, bucket of opportunities to invest in from the first touch point to the last touch point. So just as a parting word here, if I'm a brand marketer or a digital leader at a hospitality organization listening to this conversation, what are maybe the top 2 or 3 takeaways we can leave with in the last 30 seconds?
Yeah, I will say, well, we have 30 seconds. I'll say one big one. There is a really fascinating curve where something is initially considered luxury until sometimes that life cycle changes and it turns into a commodity, and it's just expected to be there. So that curve is something that's very, very critical for us to stay diligent on, to always stay ahead of what customers expect as luxury, because it's not always obvious. So I would say that luxury to commodity curve is something that is, the life cycle is becoming shorter and shorter and shorter over time. Those will kind of be probably my departing words. Amazing. As we hit 0 seconds.
Thank you so much, Lesley. We
All right.
appreciate it. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you so much.
Thank you.